You're lying in bed again, exhausted, but somehow your mind won't let you sleep. And here's the strange part. The reason you can't rest isn't because you're not tired enough. It's because your mind won't let go. The more you try to quiet it, the louder it becomes. The more you tell yourself, just stop thinking, the more thoughts appear. So what's really going on here? Why does your mind feel like it's working against you, right when you need peace the most? This video won't force you to sleep, but it may help your mind finally loosen its grip, just enough for something softer to appear. Because right now, you're not just lying in a dark room. You're replaying things. A conversation from earlier. A moment you wish had gone differently. A future that hasn't even happened yet. Your body is still, but your mind is moving fast. And it almost feels like the harder you try to control it, the less control you actually have. Have you ever noticed that? That quiet loop where one thought leads to another, and somehow you end up wide awake, trapped inside your own head? You're not broken, and this isn't a lack of discipline. There's something deeper happening here. In Buddhist wisdom, there is a gentle understanding that suffering doesn't come from thoughts themselves, but from how tightly we hold on to them. Not the thought, but the attachment. Because what if the mind isn't the problem? What if the tension you feel comes from the way you resist, the way you cling, the way you try to control something that was never meant to be controlled? And maybe, just maybe, peace isn't something you create. Maybe it's something that quietly appears the moment you stop holding everything so tightly. Tonight, we're not going to fight your thoughts. We're not going to force your mind into silence. Instead, we're going to understand it, gently, slowly. And somewhere along the way, you may begin to notice something most people never realize, that the peace you've been searching for was never really gone. Detachment, the invisible grip of the mind. But there's something most people don't notice, even in the quietest moments of the night. Earlier, you were lying there, watching your thoughts come and go, trying to calm them, trying to make them stop. But what if the real problem isn't that you're thinking too much? What if it's something more subtle than that? Because when you look closely, you're not just thinking, you're gripping. Every thought that appears feels important, feels urgent, feels like something you need to solve right now. A memory shows up and you hold on to it. A small mistake from earlier, and you replay it. Something someone said, and suddenly it becomes personal. And without even realizing it, your mind begins to tighten around these thoughts, as if holding them will somehow bring clarity or control. But instead, it creates tension. You might recognize this feeling, that quiet pressure in your chest, that sense that your mind just won't let go, like you're holding on to something, but you're not even sure what it is anymore. And in everyday life, this happens more often than we think. At work, you replay a conversation long after it's over. In relationships, you hold on to words, tones, small details, trying to figure out what they meant. At night, when everything slows down, these thoughts don't disappear. They get louder. And it's not because they are more important in the dark. It's because there are fewer distractions to pull you away from them. So your mind turns inward and begins holding tighter. But here's a gentle truth, one that isn't often talked about. Not every thought deserves your attention. Just because something appears in your mind doesn't mean it needs to stay. Just because it feels real doesn't mean it is true. And in Buddhist understanding, thoughts are like echoes. They arise, not always from the present moment, but from memory, from habit, from fear, from imagination. And yet, we treat them as if they are happening right now, as if they define us, as if they demand something from us. There's a simple image you can hold on to here. Imagine you're sitting quietly by a window, watching cars pass by on a distant road. Each car represents a thought. Some are loud, some are quiet. Some catch your attention more than others. But you don't run outside to stop every car. You don't chase them down. You simply watch. Now imagine doing the opposite. Every time a car passes, you run after it. You follow it. You try to control where it goes. You would be exhausted. And yet, this is exactly what the mind is doing with thoughts. It chases, it holds, it clings. And slowly, that habit becomes so automatic, you don't even notice you're doing it anymore. So let me ask you something, gently. What are you holding on to right now? That is already gone? A moment that has passed? A version of yourself that no longer exists? A fear about something that hasn't happened? And if you stopped holding it, even just for a moment, what would remain? Maybe a little more space, a little more quiet? Because the truth is, peace doesn't disappear because of thoughts. It disappears because we grip them too tightly. And the moment that grip softens, even slightly, something begins to shift. Not dramatically, not all at once, but gently, like loosening your hand after holding something for too long. And maybe tonight, you don't need to stop your thoughts. Maybe you only need to notice how tightly you've been holding them. And maybe you've been doing this for so long that it no longer feels like something you do. It feels like who you are. And that's what makes it so hard to put down. 2. Why letting go feels so difficult. But here's something even deeper. Something many people feel, but rarely understand. In the last part, you may have started to notice how tightly the mind holds on to thoughts, how it grips them as if they matter more than they really do. And yet, even when you see this, letting go still feels almost impossible. Why? Because somewhere inside, letting go doesn't feel like relief. It feels like loss. It can feel like if you stop holding on, you might lose control, lose clarity, even lose a part of yourself. So instead, you keep holding. You hold on to that conversation because you think understanding it will give you peace. You hold on to that memory because letting it fade feels like forgetting something important. You hold on to people, expectations, outcomes, because deep down, it feels like the only way to stay connected, to stay safe. And if you're being honest, there's a quiet fear underneath all of it, that if you truly let go, you might become indifferent, detached, empty. Have you ever felt that? Like if you stop caring so much, you might lose meaning in your life? If this feels familiar, you can quietly share your experience in the comments. Sometimes just knowing others feel this too softens the weight a little. But here's the gentle truth, one that often goes unnoticed. Letting go is not the same as not caring. It's not forgetting. It's not giving up. And it's not becoming cold or distant. It's something much quieter than that. It's trusting, without clinging. In Buddhist understanding, attachment is not love. It's the fear of losing what we love. And because of that fear, we tighten our grip. We try to control outcomes, control how people see us, control how things unfold. But here's the paradox. The tighter you hold, the more unstable everything begins to feel. Like trying to hold water in your hands. The more force you use, the faster it slips away. You might have experienced this before, in ways so subtle you didn't even notice. The more you try to control how someone feels about you, the more anxious you become. The more you try to hold on to a moment, the more you realize it's already changing. The more you try to force peace, the further away it seems. And slowly, what started as care turns into tension. There's a quiet image that reflects this. Imagine you're holding a small bird in your hands. If you hold it too loosely, it flies away. But if you hold it too tightly, you hurt it. So, what do? You learn to hold gently, not controlling, not clinging, just allowing. And maybe that's what letting go really means. Not dropping everything, not pushing life away, but softening your grip, just enough to let things be as they are. Because the truth is, that life was never meant to be controlled. It was meant to be experienced, felt, lived, allowed. And when you begin to see this, something inside you starts to shift. Not dramatically, not all at once, but quietly. You begin to notice that you don't have to chase every answer. You don't have to hold on to every thought. You don't have to force everything into place. Sometimes, peace begins the moment you stop trying to hold everything together, and instead, you let it breathe. And maybe tonight, you don't need to let go of everything at once. Maybe you can simply notice where you've been holding too tightly and wonder what it might feel like to loosen just a little. 3. You are not your thoughts. The moment you begin to see clearly. And here's the quiet realization, the one that changes everything, once you truly see it. In the last part, you may have started to notice how tightly you hold on to your thoughts, how each one feels personal, important, almost like a part of you. But what if that isn't true? What if you are not your thoughts at all? Right now, as you're listening, thoughts are still appearing. Some are subtle, some are louder, some may even be reacting to these words. But here's something very simple and very powerful. If you can notice your thoughts, how can you be them? There is something in you that is aware of the thinking, something that watches without needing to control. And that part is quiet. You might recognize this in small moments, and like when you suddenly realize you've been lost in thought for a long time, and then you come back. That moment of coming back, that awareness, who is that? Because for a brief second, the thoughts are still there, but you are no longer inside them. You're simply noticing. And in that space, there is no struggle, just observation. In Buddhist understanding, this is often described very gently. The sky is not disturbed by passing clouds. Your thoughts are like clouds. They move, they change, they come and go without asking for permission. But the sky remains. It doesn't chase the clouds. It doesn't resist them. It doesn't hold on to them. It simply allows them to pass. And maybe you are more like the sky than you've ever realized. But somewhere along the way, you learned to identify with the clouds. A thought appears. I'm not good enough. And instead of seeing it as a passing cloud, you hold on to it, you believe it, you carry it, you let it define you. Or a memory surfaces, something painful, something unresolved. And instead of watching it come and go, you step inside it, you relive it, you become it. And over time, this habit becomes so natural. It feels like who you are. But gently, there is another way to see this. Imagine again, you're lying in your bed at night. The room is quiet, the world has slowed down, and thoughts begin to appear. One about the past, one about tomorrow, another about something you wish you had said. Now, instead of following them, just imagine watching them, like clouds moving across a wide open sky. No need to stop them, no need to fix them, just watching. And in that simple act, something begins to shift. You may notice there is a distance now, a space. And in that space, there is a kind of stillness that was always there. Have you ever noticed that? That even when your mind feels busy, there is a deeper part of you that remains untouched? That part doesn't rush, doesn't worry, doesn't replay the past. It simply is. And maybe That is who you truly are. Not the thoughts, not the noise, not the constant movement, but the quiet awareness behind it all. If this feels familiar, you are not alone. Sometimes just recognizing this, even a little, can begin to change the way you see everything. Because when you no longer believe that every thought is you don't have to hold on to them so tightly. You don't have to fight them, or control them, or make them disappear. They can come and go, just like clouds. And you remain unchanged, unmoved, still. And maybe this is the beginning of something very gentle, but very real. Not forcing your mind to be quiet, but realizing there is already a quiet place within you. And in a quiet moment like this, as you lie there listening, you might begin to feel it just beneath the surface. A stillness that doesn't need to be created, only noticed. And perhaps this is where everything starts to soften. 4. The illusion of control, when holding on creates the storm. But there's a quiet truth, one that can feel almost uncomfortable to see at first. In the last moment, you began to notice that you are not your thoughts, that there is a space within you that simply observes. And yet, even with that awareness, something still keeps the mind restless. Something keeps pulling you back into tension. And that something is the need to control. Not always in obvious ways. Sometimes it's very subtle. You try to control how things turn out. You try to control how people feel about you. You try to control what happens next, so you can finally feel at ease. It sounds reasonable, even necessary. But here's the pattern most people never question. You were never really in control of those things to begin with. Not fully, not completely. You can choose your actions. You can speak, decide, respond. But outcomes? They move through too many variables, too many people, too many unseen forces. And still, the mind keeps trying. You might recognize this in small, familiar moments. You send a message, and then keep checking your phone, waiting, wondering, imagining what the other person might say. You replay how you spoke earlier, wishing you had said it differently, trying to reshape something that has already passed. You think about tomorrow, planning every detail, hoping that if you get it just right, nothing will go wrong. But instead of peace, what you feel is tension, a quiet anxiety that sits just beneath the surface. Because control, when it's forced, doesn't bring stability. It creates pressure. And slowly, that pressure becomes exhaustion. Have you ever noticed that the more you try to control everything, the less stable everything feels? And like standing in water, trying to hold the waves still with your hands. The harder you push, the more chaotic it becomes. There's a simple truth hidden inside this. Control is not what creates peace. It's what interrupts it. In Buddhist understanding, suffering often arises not from what happens, but from our resistance to how things are. We want life to unfold in a certain way. We want certainty. We want reassurance. And when reality doesn't match that, we tighten. We resist. We try harder. But the more we do that, the further we move away from calm. There's a quiet story that reflects this. Imagine someone holding a glass of water. At first, it feels light, effortless. But as time passes, they keep holding it, refusing to set it down. Minutes turn into hours, and slowly, what once felt light becomes heavy, painful, unbearable. The weight didn't change. The holding did. And maybe this is what control really is. Not the weight of life itself, but the constant effort of holding it all together. So let me ask you something, Yin. gently. What are you trying to control right now? That is already beyond your control. A person's opinion? An outcome that hasn't happened yet? A past moment that can't be changed? And what is that effort costing you? Because there is another way to move through this. Not by giving up, not by becoming passive, but by shifting where your attention rests. Instead of trying to control everything outside, you begin to notice what is happening inside. Your breath, your reactions, your awareness. Because that is where your true influence lives. Not in forcing life to obey you, but in how gently you meet it. And when you begin to see this, something softens. You no longer feel the need to hold everything so tightly. You begin to allow things to unfold. Not perfectly, not always the way you expect, but naturally. And in that allowing, there is space. And in that space, there is relief. Because peace doesn't come when everything is under control. It comes when the need for control begins to fade. And maybe this is the moment where something shifts for you. Not because life suddenly becomes certain, but because you no longer need it to be. And in that quiet release, you might begin to feel something unfamiliar. Not tension, not pressure, but a gentle kind of ease. The kind that doesn't come from controlling life, but from finally allowing it. 5. The hidden cost of holding on. The weight you no longer question. But there is something even quieter. Something you may not have fully noticed yet. In the last part, you began to see that trying to control everything only creates more tension. And maybe, just maybe, you felt a small shift, a softening. But even when control begins to loosen, there is still something else that keeps the mind heavy, something deeper. Because sometimes, it's not just about controlling the future. It's about holding on to the past, holding on to what happened, holding on to what was said, holding on to what you felt in moments that are already gone. And strangely, this holding can feel like protection. Like if you keep thinking about it, you won't be hurt again. If you keep replaying it, you'll understand it better. If you keep carrying it, it must still matter. So you don't let go. Not completely, even when it hurts. You might recognize this in your own life. A moment from years ago that still visits you at night. A conversation you wish had gone differently. A version of yourself you can't seem to forgive. And even though time has passed, something inside you is still holding on. As if putting it down would mean it was meaningless. As if releasing it would erase something important. But here's the quiet truth. Holding on to pain doesn't protect you. It drains you. Slowly, silently, like carrying something heavy. For so long, you've forgotten what it feels like to walk without it. There's a simple image for this. Imagine you're walking through your day, holding a bag. At first, it doesn't seem like much. You carry it without thinking. But inside that bag are old conversations, unresolved feelings, regret, fear. And as time passes, the bag becomes heavier. But you don't notice. Because you've been holding it for so long, it becomes normal. Until one day, you feel tired. But you don't know why. Your mind feels full. Your body feels tense. Your energy feels low. And still, you keep carrying the bag because putting it down feels unfamiliar, maybe even uncomfortable, because without it, who would you be? Have you ever felt that? That strange attachment to your own pain? Not because you want it, but because it has been with you for so long? In Buddhist understanding, attachment to suffering is one of the quietest habits of the mind, not because we enjoy pain, but because we become used to it. It becomes part of our identity, part of our story. But here's the gentle shift. You don't have to carry everything just because you've been carrying it for a long time. You don't have to keep replaying something just because it once mattered. And you don't have to hold on to pain to prove that it was real. Because it was real, it happened. And nothing you do now can change that. But what you carry forward, that is something you can begin to see differently. So, let me ask you something, very gently. What would happen if you put the bag down? Not forever, not all at once, just for tonight. What would it feel like to rest without holding on to everything? To lie there without replaying the past? To breathe without carrying the weight of what has already ended? Maybe at first, it would feel strange, empty, unfamiliar. But then, something else might appear. A lightness, a space, a quiet sense of relief you didn't even realize you needed. Because the truth is, you were never meant to carry all of this alone, or forever. And sometimes, healing doesn't begin by fixing everything. It begins by putting something down. If this perspective resonates with you, you can gently share it with someone who might need it tonight. Sometimes, a simple reminder like this can lighten more than one heart. And maybe, right now, as you're listening in the quiet, you can begin to notice what you've been carrying and wonder what it might feel like to finally set it down. 6. Letting go is not giving up, the quiet strength you didn't notice. But here's where the misunderstanding runs deepest, and where many people turn back, just before things begin to change. After everything you've seen so far, the gripping, the need to control, the weight you've been carrying, there is still one belief that quietly remains, that letting go means giving up. And because of that, you hesitate. You hold on just a little longer, because somewhere inside, it feels like if you let go, you lose. You lose the argument. You lose the meaning of what happened. You lose the chance to fix it, to make it right. And maybe you even feel like you lose a part of yourself. So instead, you stay in the tension. You keep replaying, keep holding, keep trying. Not because it feels good, but because it feels necessary. Have you ever noticed that? That sometimes you don't hold on because you want to, but because you don't know who you'd be without it? Maybe it shows up in a quiet disagreement that you can't seem to let go of. You revisit it in your mind, thinking of better responses, imagining how you could have been understood. Or maybe it's something deeper, a moment where you felt hurt, misunderstood, or unseen. And letting go of that pain feels like saying it didn't matter. But here's the gentle truth, one that changes everything when you truly feel it. Letting go is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is the quiet decision to choose peace over being right, to choose calm over chaos, to choose your inner stillness over a battle that never truly ends. In Buddhist understanding, letting go is not about losing something real. It's about releasing what was never truly yours to carry. Because think about it, the moment has already passed. The words have already been spoken. The outcome has already unfolded. What you are holding now is not the event itself. It's the attachment to it. And attachment is what creates suffering, not the experience, but the way we cling to it afterward. There's a quiet image that reflects this. Imagine two people standing on opposite sides of a rope, pulling as hard as they can. The tension builds. The strain increases. Both believe they must win. Both believe they must not let go. But what happens if one of them simply releases the rope? The struggle ends, not because they lost, but because they stepped out of the struggle entirely. And maybe this is what letting go really looks like. Not defeat, but freedom. Freedom from the endless pulling. Freedom from the need to prove. Freedom from carrying something that only brings you pain. Because the truth is, you don't lose anything real by letting go. You don't lose your worth. You don't lose your truth. You don't lose who you are. You only lose the tension, the resistance, the weight that was never meant to stay. And in that release, something unexpected appears. Not emptiness, but space. Not loss, but lightness. A quiet sense that you can finally rest. If this perspective resonates with you, a simple like can help this message reach someone else who might be holding on a little too tightly tonight. And if you're learning to let go, if you're slowly discovering what it means to choose peace over pressure, you're always welcome to stay in this space. And maybe, in a quiet moment like this, you begin to see that letting go was never about losing anything, but about returning to a place within you that was never in conflict to begin with. And perhaps this is where the mind finally begins to rest. 7. Micro-practice, watching thoughts like clouds, a gentle way to loosen the mind. And now, there is something you can quietly try, not to fix your thoughts, not to stop them, but simply to see them differently. Up to this point, you've begun to notice how the mind grips, how it tries to control, how it holds on to things long after they've passed. And maybe you've also felt that gentle shift, that space where you are no longer completely inside your thoughts. So instead of doing more, this is where you begin to do less. Just a little. Imagine again, you're lying in your bed. The room is quiet, the lights are off, your body is still, and just like before, your thoughts begin to appear. One about something that happened today, another about something that might happen tomorrow, a small memory, a quiet worry, and nothing unusual. This is what the mind does. But this time, you don't follow them. You don't try to solve them. You don't try to push them away. You simply watch, like clouds moving across a wide open sky. There is no need to stop the clouds, no need to change their shape, no need to hold on to them. They come and they go, and all you do is notice. If a thought appears, gently acknowledge it. You might softly say, in your mind, thinking, and then let it pass. No judgment, no resistance, just noticing. Another thought comes. Maybe it feels more emotional. Maybe it pulls at you a little stronger. Again, just notice. Remembering, and let it pass. You don't need to go inside it. You don't need to continue the story. Just like a cloud, it will move on its own. At first, this might feel unfamiliar because the mind is used to reacting, used to grabbing, used to analyzing, used to turning every thought into something important. So you may find yourself drifting, following a thought without realizing it. And that's okay. The moment you notice, you simply return, not with frustration, not with judgment, just gently, back to watching, back to noticing. This is not about doing it perfectly. It's about changing your relationship with your thoughts, from holding to observing, from reacting to allowing. And slowly, something begins to change. The thoughts may still come, but they don't stay as long. They don't feel as heavy. They don't pull you as deeply, because you are no longer feeding them with your attention. You are simply letting them pass, like clouds. And in between those clouds, you may begin to notice something else. A small gap, a quiet space, a moment where there is no thought, just stillness, just presence. And that space, even if it's only for a second, feels different, lighter, softer, more at ease. Have you ever noticed that? That in those tiny gaps, there is nothing missing, nothing to fix, nothing to control, just a quiet sense of being. And the more you allow thoughts to come and go, the more those spaces begin to appear. Not because you forced them, but because you stopped holding everything so tightly. So tonight, you don't need to silence your mind. You don't need to find the perfect thought. You don't need to reach a certain state. You can simply lie there and watch, thought by thought, moment by moment, letting each one pass like clouds in the sky. And maybe, without even trying, your mind begins to settle. Not because it was controlled, but because it was finally allowed. And in that allowing, there is a quiet kind of peace that doesn't come from effort, but from letting things be exactly as they are. 8. The freedom of not reacting, the space where peace begins. But there is one small shift that changes everything, and most people overlook it completely. Up to this point, you've begun to notice how thoughts arise, how the mind holds, how control creates tension, and how simply watching can soften everything. But even now, there is still a habit running quietly beneath it all, the habit of reacting. Because most of the time, it's not the thought itself that creates suffering. It's what happens next, the reaction. A thought appears, and almost instantly, you respond. You follow it, you believe it, you build on it, and before you even realize it, you're no longer just observing. You're inside the experience again. Have you ever noticed how fast that happens? A single memory shows up, and then suddenly you feel the emotion again. A small worry appears, and your body tightens. A passing thought, and your mind starts creating a story around it. It's almost automatic, like there's no space in between. But here's the quiet truth, the one that changes the way you experience everything. You don't have to respond to everything you feel. Not every thought needs a reaction. Not every emotion needs to be followed. There is a space between what arises and what you do with it. And in that space, there is freedom. But because the mind is used to reacting, it rarely notices that space. It jumps immediately from thought to reaction, from feeling to story, from moment to struggle. And this is where suffering grows. Not from the original thought, but from the chain of reactions that follow. There's a simple moment you might recognize. You're lying in bed, and a small thought appears, something insignificant. But then, you react to it. You start analyzing, questioning, adding meaning, and suddenly, your mind is fully awake, not because the thought was powerful, but because the reaction gave it energy. In Buddhist understanding, reaction is what fuels the fire of the mind. Without reaction, the thought fades. But with reaction, it grows, it multiplies, it lingers. So what happens when you don't react? At first, it feels unusual, almost like you're doing nothing. A thought appears, and instead of following it, you pause. Just a small pause. You notice it, you feel it, but you don't move with it. And in that moment, something subtle begins to happen. The thought doesn't expand. It doesn't pull you deeper. It simply passes, like a wave that rises and then falls back into the ocean. No resistance, no suppression, just no reaction. And in that non-reaction, there is a quiet kind of power, not forceful, not controlling, but freeing, because you are no longer caught in every movement of the mind. You are no longer pulled in every direction. You begin to rest in the space between. There's a gentle image for this. Imagine sitting by a river, watching the water flow. Leaves pass by, twigs, reflections, movement. You see everything, but you don't jump into the water. You don't chase the leaves. You simply sit and watch. Now imagine reacting to every single thing in that river. Jumping in, trying to grab each leaf, trying to control the flow. You would be exhausted. And yet, this is what the mind does when it reacts to every thought. So tonight, there is something very simple you can try. When a thought appears, pause. Just for a moment. Not to stop it, not to change it. Just to not react. Feel the space. Feel the stillness that exists before the reaction begins. And in that small pause, you may notice something surprising. There is no urgency, no pressure, just a quiet openness. And from that space, peace begins to grow. And not because everything is perfect, but because you are no longer feeding the storm. Because the truth is, stillness dissolves what reaction keeps alive. And maybe, right now, in this quiet moment, you can begin to notice the space between your thoughts, the space between your reactions, and wonder what your mind would feel like if you didn't have to respond to everything. 9. Micro-practice. Watching without holding. From thinking to seeing. And now, there is an even deeper shift you can gently explore. In the last practice, you began to notice that you don't have to react to every thought, that there is space, a quiet pause, before the mind begins to follow. But here's something even more subtle. Even when you're not reacting, you might still be holding. Holding. In a quieter way, not chasing the thought, but still giving it meaning, still treating it as something important. So this time, we go a little deeper, not just watching thoughts, but watching them, without holding anything at all. Imagine again, you are lying there in the quiet. Your body is still. Your breath is natural. And just like always, thoughts begin to appear. But this time, instead of thinking about them, you begin to see them. There is a difference. Thinking pulls you inside the thought. Seeing keeps you gently outside. A thought appears. Instead of following it, instead of even labeling it, you simply notice there is a thought. Nothing more. You don't ask what it means. You don't decide if it's good or bad. You don't try to understand it. You just see it. Like watching a cloud pass across the sky. You don't reach for it. You don't name its shape. You don't hold on to it. You simply allow it to move. And then it's gone. Another thought appears. Maybe it feels stronger. Maybe it carries emotion. Still, you don't grab it. You don't attach meaning to it. You simply see, this too is passing, and let it go. At first, this can feel almost too simple. The mind may try to return to analyzing, to interpreting, to making something out of everything it sees. That's its habit. But gently, each time you notice that happening, you come back. And not to thinking, but to seeing, to just being aware that something has appeared and is already disappearing. And slowly, something begins to change. You are no longer inside the movement of thought. You are no longer carrying each one as if it matters. You begin to feel lighter, as if the mind has more space to breathe. Because you are no longer holding on to every passing moment. There is a quiet freedom in this, not needing to understand everything, not needing to respond, not needing to make meaning out of every thought that appears. Just allowing, just seeing, and letting life move through you, without turning every experience into something to carry. There's a gentle image you can return to. Imagine sitting under a wide, open sky. Clouds drift by. Some are soft, some are heavy, some move quickly, others slowly. But you remain seated. You don't stand up to catch them. You don't follow them across the sky. You simply watch. And the sky remains untouched. In the same way, thus your awareness remains untouched. No matter what thought appears, no matter what feeling arises, there is something in you that does not need to hold any of it. Have you ever noticed that? That when you stop attaching meaning, even difficult thoughts begin to lose their weight? They come, but they don't stay. They pass, without leaving something behind. And in that passing, there is space. And in that space, there is peace. Not created, not forced, just revealed. And if you're on this quiet path of learning to let go, of seeing without holding, you're always welcome to stay here, to continue exploring this gentle space within. And maybe, as you rest here tonight, watching, without holding, you begin to feel something soften, a quiet openness, a sense that nothing needs to be carried. And perhaps, this is where the mind begins to truly rest. And in a quiet moment like this, as you stop holding, you may begin to notice how light your mind can actually feel when it's not carrying everything. 10. The gentle courage to release, choosing yourself quietly. And here's something many people don't realize until they've been holding on for far too long. Letting go is not something you force. It's something you allow. Up to this point, you've seen how the mind grips, how it reacts, how it holds onto thoughts, control, and even pain. And maybe you've begun to loosen that grip, just a little. But when it comes to something deeper, something emotional, something that truly mattered to you, letting go feels different, heavier. Because sometimes what you're holding on to is not just a thought. It's a person, a connection, a memory, a version of something that once felt real and meaningful. And even if everything has changed, even if deep down you know it's no longer the same, you still hold on. You might recognize this feeling, holding on to someone who is no longer really there. Maybe they've changed. Maybe they've drifted away. Maybe they're physically present, but emotionally distant. And yet, you keep revisiting the past, the way it used to feel, the way they used to be, the version of the connection that no longer exists. Because letting go of that feels like losing something important, something irreplaceable. So instead, you stay, you hold, you hope, even when it quietly hurts. Have you ever noticed that? That sometimes we don't hold on to people as they are, but as we remember them? And in doing so, we keep ourselves tied to something that no longer meets us in the present moment. In Buddhist understanding, attachment is not just about possession, it's about resistance to change. Life moves, people change, moments pass, but the mind tries to freeze things, to hold them in place. And when reality doesn't match that, we feel pain. And not because something ended, but because we didn't allow it to end. There's a quiet kind of courage in seeing this, because letting go, in these moments, doesn't feel like relief at first. It feels like stepping into the unknown. It feels like releasing something you once depended on, something that gave you meaning, or comfort, or identity. But here's the gentle truth. Letting go is not giving up on love. It's giving up the illusion that something can stay the same forever. It's allowing life to move, even when your heart wants to hold still. And that takes courage. Not loud courage, not dramatic, but quiet courage. The kind that no one else sees. The kind that happens in the middle of the night, when you finally admit to yourself, this is no longer what it was. And instead of forcing it, Instead of holding tighter, you soften, you release. Just a little, not all at once, not perfectly, but honestly. Because sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for yourself is to stop holding on to something that is no longer holding you. And in that release, something unexpected begins to appear. Not emptiness, but space. Not loss, but a quiet sense of returning to yourself. Because all this time, you weren't just holding on to them. You were holding yourself in a place that no longer existed. So let me ask you something, gently. What would it feel like to choose yourself in this moment? Not by rejecting the past, not by denying what you felt, but by allowing yourself to move forward without carrying what no longer belongs to you. Because letting go is not an act of weakness. It is an act of self-kindness, a quiet decision to stop creating pain in a place where life has already moved on. And maybe you don't need to let go of everything tonight. Maybe you can simply loosen your grip, just enough to feel the difference between holding on and finally allowing yourself to be free. 11. When nothing is missing, the quiet end of searching. And here's something even more subtle, something that sits beneath all the holding, all the reacting, all the trying. A quiet feeling that something is missing. It doesn't always have a clear shape. Sometimes it feels like restlessness, sometimes like emptiness, sometimes like a quiet dissatisfaction you can't quite explain. Even when things seem fine, even when nothing is obviously wrong, there's still that sense that something isn't complete. And without realizing it, this feeling becomes the reason you keep searching. You search through thoughts, through memories, through future possibilities. You search for answers, for clarity, for something that will finally make you feel at ease. And when you don't find it, you keep holding on to people, and holding on to outcomes, holding on to ideas of how things should be. Because it feels like if you let go, you might lose the chance to find what's missing. Have you ever felt that? That quiet belief that peace is somewhere else? Somewhere ahead, somewhere outside, somewhere you haven't reached yet. And so the mind keeps moving, thinking, searching, trying to complete something that never feels complete. But here's the gentle truth, the one that changes everything when you truly see it. Nothing is missing. Not in this moment, not in the quiet space between your thoughts. Because when the mind becomes still, even for a second, that feeling of something missing disappears. Have you ever noticed that? In those rare moments when your mind isn't searching, there is no lack, no pressure, no need to fix anything, just a quiet sense of enough. In Buddhist understanding, this feeling of lack does not come from reality. It comes from the mind's habit of always looking for something more, something better, something different. But the more it searches, the more it reinforces the idea that something is missing. And so the cycle continues, searching, holding, never arriving. But when you stop, even for a moment, everything changes. There's a simple image for this. Imagine someone searching for something all over their house, room to room, checking every corner, growing more frustrated with each step, only to realize what they were looking for was already in their hand. That's what this is like. You've been searching for peace, through thoughts, through control, through holding on, when all along, it was never missing. It was just covered by the movement of the mind. And the moment that movement slows, even slightly, peace reveals itself. Not as something new, not as something created, but as something that was always there, quiet, unmoving, complete. Peace begins when you stop searching for what was never lost. And maybe you don't need to find anything tonight. You don't need to figure everything out. You don't need to reach some perfect state. Maybe you can simply rest right here, without searching, without adding anything, without needing this moment to be different from what it is. Because in this stillness, nothing is lacking. And maybe, as you sit with that, as you allow yourself to stop searching, even just for a moment, you begin to feel something soften, a quiet sense of enough. And perhaps this is where the journey gently comes to an end, without needing to go anywhere at all. 12. The stillness that was always there, the peace you never lost. And in the end, there is one final realization, so simple that it is often overlooked. All this time, you thought you were trying to create peace. You tried to quiet your thoughts, to fix what felt wrong, to let go, so you could finally feel at ease. But what if peace was never something you had to create? What if it was something that was already there, waiting, quietly, beneath everything? Up to this moment, you've seen how the mind holds, how it reacts, how it searches, how it carries. And maybe you've also begun to feel something different. A softening, a space, a quiet sense that something is no longer as heavy as it was before. And that's because what you were holding was covering something, not creating the weight, but hiding the stillness underneath it. Imagine a lake. On the surface, the water is moving, waves ripple, reflections distort. Everything seems unclear. But beneath the surface, the water is still. Always. It doesn't become still when the waves stop. It was already still, even when the surface was in motion. And maybe this is what your mind is like. The thoughts, the emotions, the reactions, the need to control the weight you've been carrying. Those were the waves. But beneath all of that, there is something that has never moved, never been disturbed. A quiet stillness that does not come and go. And for a moment, you may begin to feel it now. Not as an idea, not as something to understand, but as something you recognize. A familiar calm that doesn't depend on anything changing. Have you ever noticed that? That even in the middle of a busy mind, there are brief moments where everything falls silent. And in those moments, there is nothing missing, nothing to fix, just stillness. And maybe what you've been searching for all this time was hidden by the very effort of searching, covered by the thoughts you tried to control, covered by the emotions you tried to hold, covered by the need to make everything different from what it is. But now, even just for a moment, you can see it, you can feel it. It was here, all along. Not something you earned, not something you created, something you uncovered. By loosening your grip, by softening your reactions, by allowing things to pass, without holding on to them. And in that allowing, the mind becomes quiet, not forced into silence, but naturally at rest, like the surface of the lake when the wind fades. And maybe this is all you needed to see, not how to control your mind, not how to fix every thought, but how to stop covering what was already peaceful. And maybe tonight, you don't need to do anything more. No more searching, no more holding, yet no more trying to arrive somewhere else. You can simply rest right here, in this quiet space that has always been within you. And maybe, as the night continues, and your thoughts slowly drift, you begin to feel it more clearly. This stillness, this ain'tness, this quiet presence, that was never lost, only waiting to be noticed. Core message of the video. Maybe after everything we've gently explored together, you're beginning to notice something. That feeling you had at the beginning, the heaviness, the restless mind that wouldn't settle, the quiet tension you couldn't quite explain. It hasn't disappeared because you solved it. It has softened because something inside you has let go. Not all at once, not perfectly, but just enough to feel the difference. Because the truth is, peace was never something you had to create. It was never waiting for you at the end of solving every thought or fixing every part of your life. It was always here, hidden beneath the holding, covered by the need to control, quietly waiting beneath the noise. And the moment you begin to release your grip, not forcefully, not all at once, but gently, and peace doesn't arrive. It reveals itself, like unclenching your hand after holding something for too long, like your body slowly sinking into a bed at the end of a long day. There is no effort in it, only a quiet return. And maybe tonight, as everything around you becomes still, you don't need to figure anything out. You don't need to go back and fix the past. You don't need to reach forward and control what hasn't happened yet. You can simply be here, breathing, resting, allowing everything to be exactly as it is. And in that space, you may begin to notice something subtle, a lightness, a softness, a quiet sense that nothing is missing, that nothing needs to be added for this moment to be complete. And maybe this is the understanding you've been searching for all along, that peace doesn't come from holding everything together. It comes from finally letting it rest. If these reflections gently resonate with you, you can share what you're feeling or noticing in the comments. Sometimes putting it into words helps you see it more clearly. And if you feel drawn to continue this kind of quiet journey inward, you're always welcome here with Buddhist Teachings Audio, where we slowly explore what it means to let go and come back to stillness. For now, there is nothing more you need to do. No more searching, no more holding. Just this moment, just this breath. And maybe, for tonight, you don't need to hold anything at all. And if your mind becomes quiet tonight, even for a moment, don't try to hold on to it. Just let it be. Thank you for being here and for allowing yourself this space to simply rest.